what we Black women did, because Black men, our fathers, our brothers, our uncles, were so publicly despised and murdered and everything else by the establishment. In the movement, we let them run the show. And I remember in the Panthers, I wasn't in the Panthers, but I worked with the Panthers. It was a pyramid system. And the sisters were at the copy machine.
I'm Suzette Llewellyn.
I'm Suzanne Packer.
We're two actors and, more importantly, two friends who've been through life's ups and downs together over the last 30 years.
In this series, we invite some incredible people to our imaginary veranda to tell the stories of their lives.
This is Veranda Talk. Welcome, Bonnie.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us here at Red Bull London.
My pleasure.
And welcome to Veranda Talk.
So, full disclosure, I already know Bonnie.
For years.
And I wonder, Bonnie, if you think we knew each other at first when I was part of a radio play that you were producing, and it was for coloured girls, The Rainbow's Not Enough, Enter Sake Shange, that you adapted. I think that's when we first got together.
I've never produced anything, which is lucky for everybody. But I must have adapted it.
You adapted it because you were in the booth. I do remember you being in the booth.
Yeah, I must have adapted it.
So there you are.
For Colored Girls, yep.
The Coloured Girls, and I had the honour of being in it.
Yes, I can see your little face. Yes, I can.
Yes,
I
much
can.
littler than it is now.
No.
Not as hanging
wonderful.
as it is.
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not.
So I know you as a playwright first, but you are that and also a theatre film critic, a political analyst. You have been a board member on many leading arts organisations. You are a historian, broadcaster, novelist. So many hats.
Too many. But anyway.
So what at the moment, Bonnie, is taking up the most space in your brain at the moment?
Well, I'm writing a memoir of my life in lockdown. I lived in a building in Soho that was completely empty. My husband, David, was locked down in France because, remember, we couldn't cross the borders. He has Parkinson's, and so I could only see him through a screen. So I'm enduring that every day. There's no one. I live in Soho. You can't even imagine Soho with nobody in it. To go out on Oxford Street every day, it's like you could get in a barrel and roll down Oxford Street. There'd be no people. So I'm sort of assembling that because I think we are all still recovering from that COVID. And we lost a friend during that time as well. So I'm attempting to retrieve all of that while I'm trying to remember a taxi ride I took with James Baldwin. So it's all sort of meshed into that. And it's trying to remember a traumatic time in my youth with a traumatic time in the present. It's not sad or like gloomy, but just I think we're still in pandemic response and we don't really know it. We're still in it. So hopefully people will read the book and they'll say, oh, I didn't think about that before. That's why I feel like this now, or that's why I want to do this now. Because pandemics always affect human beings, always. And this was a big one.
Can you summarize how you might have been affected, or are you still processing that?
I'm still processing it, asking myself, why do I always have more male friends than female friends, even though I'm a feminist? Deep stuff like that. And also, I've been thinking a lot about identity. And I've been thinking a lot about the fact that my generation, the baby boomers, I was born in 1948. So by the time 1968 rolls around, I'm in the middle of it, student politics, everything, Black Power, the beginning of women's. And I did a talk the other day for, this is the centenary of the birth of Malcolm X. And I was talking about Malcolm X, and suddenly I burst into tears on the stage, and I thought, why are you crying? Well, because Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and Fred Hampton, the leader of the Chicago Black Panther Party, who I knew and worked with, they died so young.
Mm.
And now, I look back on that and think, oh, my God, Malcolm wasn't even 40. Martin Luther King was, they were my dad's
38.
age, and that was old then. Now I'm thinking, I just started crying. And so it's all of this kind of stuff that's making me think about identity. My generation invented identity and identity politics because we didn't want to be turning the other cheek. We didn't want to be lying down in front of a bunch of cops while they're stepping on us. We didn't want any of that to happen to us the way it happened to our mommies and our aunties and our uncles. But now I think it's run out of steam. And I don't even know what I mean because I feel in a way that the interrogation of these terms have not kept up with the use of them. So they become something that now with Trump in office and all this backlash, we're being hit over the head with. And partly it's because I think when humans come up with a big idea like identity, then that idea has to constantly be fed, has to constantly be interrogated, has to be constantly looked at. And I think, and I'm saying it for the general population, a part of it hasn't happened. And if I was 22 years old now, I know what my gender is. I know what that means. I know historically what that means. I know what my ethnicity means. I know historically what that means, blah, blah, blah. But what would I be? And so that's partly what's really hard about doing this memoir is about.
One thing we discussed a little while it came up because Sue had the greatest pleasure of interviewing Toni Morrison a few years ago. And we always remember one of her famous quotes is racism is a distraction. And that you made me think about a 22-year-old today with all of these distractions, your TikTok, your all of the Instas, all of that, and they're being programmed to keep you connected so that you don't want to stop looking. So it makes me wonder, where does their interrogation begin? Where do they have the time, the space to interrogate those questions that you're bringing up?
I can't imagine. Well, I'm writing a young person's book now, too.
You're writing 2 books?
That's why I'm crazy. Yes. So that, I can't imagine what it must be like to be 22 years old now. Because there's so many pathways into your mind. And I live in Soho, like I say, so I see young people all the time. And I'm looking at, I can feel the pressure. You can feel it. To look good, to be famous, or to be known. And one of the reasons Trump succeeded with that generation is because Trump goes against the kind of civilizational norms. In other words, Trump says, basically because he's a psychopath, but for another reason, Trump says you don't have to be a nice person. You don't have to be a civilized person. You don't have to know your place, whatever that is. Just do what you want to do. And so I think that they are torn between making your way through life as you have to as a human being and the constant pressures of being visible. This generation has to be invisible. Invisibility is not an option. And there are times when you have to be invisible. There are times you have to pull back. You have to be gone. You have to not exist so that you can do the things you need to do or you can recharge, whatever. And these people are always on. And I don't know what it's like to constantly be in the light like that, but they don't know any other life. So that's their life. When you hear about people, young people going to doctors with this ailment in your neck because they're scrolling on the toilet. You wake up and you scroll. You post everything that's happened to you to make sure people know you exist. Partly TikTok is about saying, hey, here, look at me. And there's no place, young people don't have a place to hide where you can make a mistake, where you can grow, where you can become something different. I don't know how they do this. I don't know what's going to happen. If they ban TikTok, it might go dark because the Supreme Court of the United States decreed it be sold. So it might go dark. And I think if it does, then there's going to be some mental health crises with a lot of people. This is going to be very serious business.
But if it does go dark, I could well imagine that there's someone somewhere that has something very quickly that could be...
Oh, it'll come back. Something will happen.
Yeah, definitely.
Or it will
might
happen
even be
again.
one of these young people.
Yeah, it will
who
happen
have it.
again. But it's an addictive substance that, I mean, it shouldn't be this way. I mean, there's part of me refuses to do certain things I really should do. I live down the street from Apple, so they just laugh at me. I come in there every other day saying, turn my phone off. I'm like, so, and they know me. But, it's like there's a point where we have a young generation that is not off the grid. They don't know anything about that.
No.
Yeah.
You can't, when I was 22 years old, I could vanish. I vanished. My parents, if I told them I was on the moon, they didn't know any better because they had no way of reaching me. So if I didn't send them a postcard, and I was in some precarious situations, I didn't send them a postcard, if I didn't call them, they knew nada. It's not that way anymore.
And the positive side to that, I think, is if you get into scrapes when you are off the grid, you have to get yourself out of them. Whereas I find this generation, 18 to 22, it's, can you sort this out for me? Because they haven't they haven't built a resilience.
Yes.
Where they've been in a space where they can only fall on their own wits to get out of any.
Yes.
And that I find worrying.
Yes.
Yeah, that is worrying. But I do think there is a movement amongst some of them. I'm looking at of young people who want to literally physically move.
That's great.
There's parkour. There's certain things that people are doing.
That's great.
And not just parkour, things like that, but there are literally movement things. And it's not all just going to the gym. It's actual stuff they're doing to make themselves, because I think there is something that is natural within us that goes against this.
Stuck.
But also something where you are just taking in.
Yes.
Where you are just taking in this mechanical, the world that
constantly.
way. I think, because I feel it has a physical, not just on your neck, like moving your head somewhere, but physically that your stomach, you get nauseous. There are things happening.
Yeah.
So there is, I'm thinking about with my two young daughters, what the young people, they're not children, where there is something pushing against that, and their friends, there is there is a pushback.
So they're aware.
Yeah, they're aware that
That's
something
great.
isn't right, and they don't want to. But
That's great.
But it is tough.
It's tough for them to break away, because my son has said to me that I wish I didn't have to use my phone so much. But then he quickly said, but then how would I contact my friends?
Yeah.
So even and he's 22.
Yes.
And then there's that thing of, which he introduced me to, FOMO.
Yes.
Fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I didn't know about.
Oh, yes.
But then I've heard there's a movement, JOMO.
Yeah.
Some young people are going, well, let's have joy of missing out.
Yes.
But how do people like my
But
son
to
who
even
want to
say
get
it,
on that?
But to even have any, but to say it. I'm not a mother, or I have no children around me, so I don't know what what that is. But I can hear both of you as moms, and I can see them. I can see them on the street. And during lockdown, one thing that happened that I write about in the book is there used to be a group of people the age of your children who would come out at 3 o'clock in the morning. This was against the law. They came out at 3 o'clock in the morning, and because they were in the West End, they thought nobody would bother them. They brought music and their drinks, and they danced. It makes me cry when I think about them. And I look out the window at them, and they were breaking the law. And I thought to myself, Bonnie, these kids need to be together. You see, they got to be together. Their hormones are up. They got to be together. Leave them alone. They're harmless. They were dancing, singing, hugging each other for about an hour or two every other night. Then they vanished. Yeah. But they needed to do it.
Yeah. And I suppose same way you needed to be with David.
I did to a certain extent. And I need to be with me more. So I found me. I had two friends, both of them were men, many still are, and which was interesting to me because it did make me ask about this lack of real women, like call up your girlfriend type thing. I I've only had once, and I lost my two friends, and they died. And I think and I was quite young, and it was around the time I met Baldwin. So I think that there's a part of me is like, if you're friends with a woman like you are with these guys, maybe something will happen to her. And that's an unconscious thing. When something like that happens to you when you're very young, you can't walk through life and go, well, these are horrible things, but...
We hope you're enjoying our conversation with Bonnie Greer.
Bonnie made a contribution to the book we wrote in response to the murder of George Floyd, Still Breathing, 100 Black Voices on Racism.
The book features 100 essays from musicians, members of parliament, poets, artists, athletes, civil servants, doctors, and lawyers. They seek to educate, to bear witness, and to offer hope for a better future.
You can find Still Breathing 100 Black Voices at all good online retailers.
Bonnie, you keep titulating us with James Baldwin. Tell us about him.
Well, this is the source of the book. There was, for maybe 20 years of my life after it happened, I thought it was a false memory because I couldn't remember it. But I'm not prone to doing that. So that was wrong. And then I started to recreate again as a kind of film in my mind so I could see it, because I write film and try to see it. And I asked my friend who's in the book, she's an African-American woman based in Brussels. She's Gen X. She's of that generation who had never heard of Baldwin when she went to university in 89. You've been canceled. My generation had totally canceled him. And the only thing I remember as I'm going through this and sifting through this, I remember his smile. I remember he was not that much bigger than me, which is probably why he wanted me to go on this taxi ride with him. And he moved like a dancer. He was like a dancer. He reminded me of Sammy Davis Jr. in the sense of his feet. Mm. And you can see when a dancer, you almost know an opera singer when they're talking. You almost know a dancer when they're walking. It's how they walk. And he was like that. The only thing that I remember, and the book is about trying to remember, is he was crying. And he had a paper cup, which in America we call a Dixie cup. And he had some alcohol in it. And I remember it smelling like bourbon, because my dad drank bourbon. And he kept saying, I let you kids down. I let you kids down. And he went on and on. In another memoir, I wrote about a little bit more. But as time goes on, things start to fade. But I'm trying to retrieve that because it changed me. It's like if I sat and met Toni Morrison, you're getting ready to talk, and suddenly she's like crying. And if you're young, that sort of freezes you in a way. You think, well, because you can't do anything about it.
No.
You're not old enough to do anything about it. You don't know what to do. And he's this man who I have idolized since I was a teenager, so thrilled to be in a car with him, sits next to me and he's crying his eyes out. And there's a part of me, I think, for the next 50 or so years, I just pull the screen down because there was nothing I could do for him.
So how would you have interpreted that, say now then, mm-hmm. Obviously, because I can imagine it was quite stunning at that time, by I let you down. How do you interpret that now?
Well, what I say is, I think, and that goes back to the beginning of what I was saying about identity, what we Black women did, and it wasn't conscious, but we did it, because Black men, our fathers, our brothers, our uncles, were so publicly despised and murdered and everything else by the establishment. In the movement, we let them run the show. And I remember in the Panthers, I wasn't in the Panthers, but I worked with the Panthers. It was a pyramid system. And the sisters were at the copy machine. Okay. Some sisters came out, like Angela Davis. But that was very rare. And we spoke out. But to a certain extent, we allowed the leadership to be male, mainly because at the end of the day, in America and probably every other country in the world, is mano a mano. And so it's about men, who can throw down the heart. So we let the brothers in front. Within that sort of trajectory, was hyper masculinity. So and then we allowed that as well. So, I'm thinking about, as I'm speaking to you, I'm thinking about Shaft, that movie, the first one, which we looked at. And Shaft bedded women, white women. This was I don't know if he did or not, but he gave me the impression that he was doing this. And this was a mark of valor. This was, when Eldridge Cleaver wrote about raping white women as a revolutionary act, this was a mark of valor. So as a Black woman in those days, you could sit back there and think, oh, whoa. But the brother needs to express himself. The brother needs to get out ahead. So for James Baldwin, somebody who was quite obviously a gay man, never hid it, wrote a book about two gay lovers.
Is that Giovanni's Room?
Yes, and also the book that I read under the covers when I was younger, and my favorite one, Another Country, which is about, he was a monster to the movement, and they did everything they could, Eldridge, all these people, to destroy him. And the white liberal establishment went along with what we were doing. So he couldn't get on TV, he couldn't get published. He had to come back to teach at school in universities where he wasn't paid properly. Black academicians had to come together to help him. Thank God Toni Morrison was able to gather his work toward the end, and she came out with this great landmark anthology of his work. But by the time he died, this man was invisible. And I'm saying this as my friend who was born in 1963. By the time she goes to university in 1989, she said she never heard of him.
Pierces my heart.
And so, now I look at all these young people jumping around about James Baldwin, and I'm thinking this is recent, everybody. James Baldwin was not on the radar, and he died like that.
Yeah, you're making me think of an interview with him and between him and Nikki Giovanni.
That's the one around the time I met him.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when she is saying, when he's kind of challenging her about a relation, what are you going to do in this relationship? It's abusive. And she says, well, if the brother wants to treat me, I've got to still let him be a king. I've got to allow him to be a king. And she's saying this.
Yes,
and so
she did.
And you can see where that's coming out of, but it's an interesting thing. It's, again, the Black woman carrying everything. Because you have to carry, it's happened in the last 15, 20 years where something's happened. There was a big incident maybe in the last 15 years where there was an attack, and it was somebody who was attacking Black women, and the Black women were not being encouraged to report it because it was a Black man. And it's like, well, you're going to make it worse for him. And it's like, hello?
But that is what we felt.
Doing? So yes, but that, of course, that is a cyclical thing that comes around because of that. It's almost like you're being charged with holding somebody up, even though somebody's kicking you in the back of your knees. And it's really, it's tricky. Whereas actually, then we're all fragile, we're all human. That man is no more of a baby than the woman is.
But we can say that now. Like, for instance, I met the producer of Tina in the musical, a wonderful woman. And the playwright is in her 30s. She's a wonderful writer. And neither of them, I think, got to the bottom of why Tina put up with Ike for so long. Now, we wouldn't, people looking at that now, the audience is booming them.
No, people are putting up with it. This was something that happened in the 15 years. Those Black women were vilified in this 21st century. They were vilified for reporting this Black man. It's like, you shouldn't do that. We should be protecting
But what
them.
I meant was, I haven't seen the show, but obviously in the show, that's not explained. That part of what, so people don't know why are you, I haven't seen it, but if you're young, you think, well, why are you putting no attention? And that is it. And I tell you, I was thinking about George Floyd, and I tweeted this when he got murdered. Everybody was going on about George Floyd. I said, number two, and this is a horrible thing to say, but I'm gonna say it. Number two, George Floyd got recorded by a Black woman. Now, this young lady had not had the courage to put him on Facebook. He would be nothing. And number one, what do you think the police exist for? They exist to kill Black folks. See, now people were freaking out about that, which I call a COVID response. That's one of the things I'm doing in my book. That's the way it's always been. It's not been any different. So that there was on social media is what made them react. But black policemen and black policemen were killing black people all the time. But I think to go back to black males, I think Baldwin, I'm pretty sure I nailed down that I think he was on his way to O'Hare Airport. So I think he's probably going to New York to do this interview with Nikki Giovanni for Soul. Soul was the show, and they did this sort of conversation in which Nikki says to him at one point, I'm paraphrasing it, why don't you feel sorry for us? Why are you always talking to white people to tell them to reconcile themselves to us? And with the implication of comforting them on their journey, why don't you comfort us? We're the ones so it's all of that kind of thing. And so it's been digging back in this memoir to my generation, how we broke away from our parents in a really visceral way, and we broke the whole society away. And we took guys, nobody like James Baldwin, but I said at the conference about Malcolm X, I said Malcolm was lucky, and so was MLK, because they didn't get a chance to be canceled, because we were on our way to doing that.
Yeah.
And Baldwin lived.
Yeah. But Malcolm was definitely on his way to being cancelled.
Oh, totally.
Because once he'd broken away from...
And Malcolm X already had, Dr. King had been already by us, and Malcolm was on his way. Absolutely. And if that happened, we would know nothing about them like we do now.
It makes me think about heroes and wanting, I don't know, is it needing to have heroic figures in our lives? Whether it's to look up to somebody, to aspire to be like them. And it does make me wonder, is that why? Because I always get, my visceral reaction is anytime I hear there's an atrocious crime against a white person, my first thought is, I hope it's not a black man. I hope it's not black. So I'm just wondering, in that, we're discussing that thing about we have maybe a different standard as a black woman who's been brutalized by a black man. Because we know what they're up against. So my question to you, Bonnie, is, who are your heroes? Or do you, like me, need a hero? Are you your own hero?
My heroes, first of all, when I went to Ghana was when I decided I was an African. Okay, that cured me.
Oh, you've got to give us some more in that.
Okay, all right.
So you were an African till you went to Africa, an African
and that's
country.
now. This was at the beginning of the 90s. I went to teach for a week or couple of days film school course and teaching film screenwriting. And it was in those days when the tourist trade was just developing, so it was quite small. I was going to go on a tour bus to Elmina, and where the slave castle is, but I was too late. So this white guy said, why don't you take a ride with me? And I'm sitting in the car with this guy, thinking to myself, what is my karma? Okay, I'm going down to a slave fortress with a year, but what's my karma here? So, what it was we went to the Kumasi, to the ruins of Kumasi. And it was a hot day, and he was really sweating. I was comfortable. And then when I looked at him, I thought, oh, you couldn't have come here because you couldn't have endured the heat. So who was here? And then we went down to the coast, and I went through the slave fortress. And back then, I'm talking about the early 90s, it was just starting to be developed. So it was fairly basic. And we saw all of the dungeons and the dining room and the room where they kept the Oba, all of these things before they sent him away, exiled in the British. And, mostly there were a lot of Americans there. And of course, we were crying our eyes out. And I walked up the ramparts of the castle, and I looked over the edge. And I looked down on the beach, and I could see the Atlantic off of it. And I thought, I must come from a hell of a people. If we survived that, if we got through this, and this is, you don't know where you're going. You're turning into a void. Somebody who made me started to decide to stay alive. And so to answer that, and I say this is what my novel is about, my citizenship is the slave boat. Those are my people. That's my country. That's my nation. Africa's back here in the mist. I don't know what's in front of me in this new mist I'm going toward, but these people around me are my country, my people.
So it's that quote that the subtitle, A Descendant of Transcendence.
Yes.
That's what that speaks to me, what you've just described, which is the subtitle to your story in 100 Voices.
Thank you. Yes, I love
which is just, you've just answered the question I was going to answer about that.
And that's on page 238.
Yes.
On our book, Still Breathing, 100 Black Voices on Racism. Reminds me, I've said this before, I quoted it, you'll know it. I's a long-memoried woman, Grace Nichols.
Yes.
I have crossed an ocean, I've lost my tongue. From the root of the old one, a new one has sprung. And that is totally what that whole thing is about. And it is because it's this wonderful thing that has, as I keep saying, and I always carry that with me, we're Jamaican, we're anybody from the Caribbean or the new, Americas, African, we created a culture out of a world that was torture. We created that. And it's a new, it's not divorced from the past, but it is new.
New.
It's something else that you shaped. You were slung the clay and the mud there with bits of things. You had to scrabble. These people made a choice. They didn't all walk back in the sea.
And that's what Glisson says, créolité, the idea of creating nuance and mixture, all of these things. Where the Europeans brought hostile plants to the region and their diseases and actually created climate change, let's just be honest about it, and killed off a whole bunch of people. The Arawaks died. In Brazil, in the Caribbean, in the south of the United States, we created a new nation and a new people. A great human achievement.
Bonnie, we could talk forever. Sadly, we haven't got forever today.
Exactly.
So we want to get to this part of our chat where we've invited you to our veranda, hence the title of our podcast.
Yes.
So we'd like to ask you to give us an essence, a picture of your veranda. What does your veranda look like? Where is it? What surrounds you? What are the sights, sounds, feelings? What might you be drinking? Who might be joining you on that veranda?
Well, my veranda is in Reykjavik in Iceland.
Ooh.
And that's my dream country. And I love the Northern Lights. When I first saw them, I thought, oh, that's for me. And there's a sauna in my house. It's a sort of like a ranch house. It's very flat. And I'm not far from the bay where there's fire coming up all the time from the water. And I've got a little dance hall in there too around the sauna. And the veranda is enclosed because I don't actually like the cold, but I want to be there, so I got to be in the cold. And so it's enclosed, and it's got palm trees, it's got flowers, it's got wonderful wine and champagne. I have someone cooking for me because I can't cook, maybe David. And that's why I want to end up on top of the world, on top of this volcano, and, looking at the Northern Lights and being in the land where the sun never sets at night. In the wintertime, you have to have black blinds. You pull them down so you can sleep. So that's where I want to be.
That is amazing. That's our first in Iceland, our first veranda.
Love it. Love it.
Oh, my goodness. Bonnie, you are a treat. You are a Bonnie treat.
Well, thank you. And thank you for letting me say some of these things. They're very important for me to say and for me to hear myself say, because it's not easy to write this kind of thing. So thank you very much.
Well, I can't speak for Sue, but you are my hero. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Too. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Bonnie Greer.
If you did, why not click, share, and send it to someone you think would enjoy it too? Or they're able to find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
I'm Suzette Llewellyn.
And I'm Suzanne Packer.
Veranda Talk is a Bengo Media production.